Every rapper has a ride or die homie, and more often than not, that ride or die will also be a rapper.
It's a crazy story, man.
All right, yeah, see.
When we was at the airport, some tall ass nigga, like 7 feet. He see Durkee, yo. now that was crazy.
The rule of the streets dictate that in the event one of them dies, the other has to slide for their fallen homie, carry out revenge on whoever's taken out their brother. It's happened more times than anyone can count. I'm talking big names in the industry. And in this video, I'm gonna show you 5 high-profile cases of rappers who did slide for their dead affiliates. Lil Loaded for his brother. This clip you're seeing right now is the alleged moment Lil Loaded got revenge for his older brother. It's a crazy, crazy story from a rapper that had an equally crazy, crazy life, but it gets tragic real quick. And when I say tragic, I'm not just talking about the op he took out his revenge on. Lil Loaded was born in San Bernardino, California, and was raised in Dallas. Lil Loaded had a rough start to life, born to a single mom and jailbird father. And being the middle child of 5 kids, Lil Loaded's life was fated to get worse, and it did. When he was just 15, Lil Loaded would lose his older brother. Now, you gotta understand the sheer significance of who his older brother was to him. He wasn't just some older sibling that happened to be born some 6 years before him.
And my big brother, like before he passed away, R.I.P. my big brother, we had lots of talks, and he was just, you gotta go get your money, like whatever you do, like you gotta make sure you go get it. So shit, when he passed away, it was left to me, I feel like. So I was left to be the man, so shit, gotta go do what I gotta go do.
He was the co-breadwinner of the family, along with their mama, since their pops was locked up. He was also Lil Loaded's mentor. The rapper looked up to him, learned from him, and got into gang life on his behest. So when he died, Lil Loaded wept hard like a baby. But then he immediately realized that he had to be strong for his family. He was the man of the house now. It was now his job to be the responsible one, but something had broken inside of him.
And like after a while, like when my brother passed, it wasn't really doing it for me. When I was young, like, nah, I was like, you can ask, like, I was happy, I was cool, like, cool kid, but then when that happened, it was like, they didn't care how we feel when they took my brother, so it's like, that sympathizing part of me out of there.
He had become a villain from here on out, ruthless, the self-acclaimed blue demon. And it was during this period that Lil Loaded allegedly slid for his brother. Now, you gotta know, before you do your research, that it's a lot of that die in the hood that don't get on the news and stuff. Like Lil Loaded's older brother's death never made it to the news. So you should not be surprised that his killer also went unnoticed by mainstream media. So I won't blame you if you ask me how the I know Lil Loaded slid for his brother. Well, it has everything to do with this interview Lil Loaded had with DJ Vlad. I can't show you the clip for copyright reasons, but the conversation went like this. At some point while DJ Vlad was asking Lil Loaded about his life and the circumstances that led to the death of his brother, he threw this question at him. Did they ever find the guys that killed him? Lil Loaded wasn't gonna give clues. His response was a simple, I don't know, but DJ Vlad did not relent. He probed further, asking him, okay, but nobody got arrested, no one got convicted. Nothing? But Lil Loaded didn't even respond with words, just basically saying no, and that's when he smiled. The kind of knowing smile where you know for a fact that he had his revenge. So DJ Vlad kept on with his line of questioning. Did that bother you? He said. Still with the smile on his face, Lil Loaded was very quick to respond. Nah, now I'd be damned if anyone tells me that this don't mean nothing. Because if you've been following everything I've been saying about Lil Loaded, then you know he ain't the type to forget that kind of thing or even forgive. Especially after he almost took a bullet to the face from his ops.
The one time that I would say I was most worried was when I got shot in my hand. It was a 380 bullet. I probably would've got hit in my face, but it was like this. It didn't go through, luckily, too. You see, right here. But I would've got hit in my face, but after that, get me wrong, why he looking like that? I'm already clutching ready.
But there's no happy ending here for Lil Loaded. Because despite the fact he had an insanely successful start to his rap career, Lil Loaded encountered crazy tragedy, mistakenly shooting his best brody, Savage Boozy, during a music video shoot that led to the loss of his life. Lil Loaded was charged with manslaughter charges. While all of that was going on, there was word on the street that Lil Loaded's homegirl cheated on him with another dude, and her betrayal hit the rapper so hard that it got him talking about killing the dude responsible. On the 31st of May 2021, Deshaun Maurice Robertson, Lil Loaded's real name, posted a farewell message on his IG story saying, "Dear Most High, please forgive me for my shortcomings and all of the times I fell short of making you proud. I ask for entrance into your kingdom through all of my mistakes. I know you love all your children, and I'm ready for my heart and soul to join you." Later that same day, Lil Loaded's auntie would find the rapper in a pool of his own blood. The rapper had put a bullet into his own skull. Some say the guilt of his friend's demise had gotten to him. Others say it had something to do with his cheating girlfriend. But the truth is, we will never know. King Von for J Money. On the 12th of January 2011, a 15-year-old gangster disciple named Tuka, real name, Shondell Gregory, was gunned down by unknown members of rival gang, Black Disciples in his hood. Now, the police might have not known who killed Tuka, but the streets knew. And one GD member in particular, a teenage female assassin, Gakira Barnes, nicknamed K.I., knew who killed her friend. And she made it her life's mission to slide for her homie. On the 11th of August, 2011, just 8 months after Tuka's grisly demise, a Black Disciple rapper named Odie Perry was gunned down by a lone member of the Gangster Disciple. Many years later, the police would reveal that Odie's killer was in fact K.I., our female assassin who reportedly had 17 bodies on her rap sheet. Of course, while it took the police years to find out who took out Odie Perry, the street immediately knew who it was because, you see, Odie was a legend to his faction of the Black Disciples. He had connections to Chief Keef and had even appeared in a couple of his music videos. He was such a legend that when all was said and done, everyone agreed to rename their set O-Block, the same O-Block that would produce superstar shooters like T. Roy, Lil Durk, and of course, King Von. Are you getting the picture I'm painting? Good. Because after Odie's passing, K.I. became O-Block's #1 priority. They had to take her out, and it seemed like that task fell to the self-acclaimed demon, King Von himself. K.I. might have been a lethal shooter, but Von was the one to fear. He became K.I.'s nemesis, toying with her on Twitter, exchanging threats and insults. But anyone who followed their banter during those early months of beef would tell you that it didn't feel like Von really wanted to take K.I. out. In fact, it kind of looked like the O-Block demon was flirting with the enemy. I'll show you why with a series of tweets. The first recorded time Von would cross paths with K.I. was on the 25th of September 2012, when the O-Block demon claimed that he beat up a female op on the train. If there was any doubt who he was talking about, K.I. would respond to Von's tweet the following day. First, she accepted that she was beaten, but she claimed she shot back, claiming to have shot her attacker in the face. They was keeping their names vague, but peeps could tell that this was the beginning of a bloody end between the two, because next thing you know, Von was tweeting her directly asking if she was really a gangster. When K.I. confirmed that she was a real gangbanger, Von sent her a direct threat, warning her that she had better kill him before he gets to her because his aim was a whole lot better than hers. But was about to get a lot weirder, because while K.I. maintained the same energy, going out of her way to beat up a homie of Von's, Von on the other hand began acting sus, like he was asking if she had a boyfriend. He even went on to tell her straight up that he was catching feelings for her and began calling her wifey. Now, all of this could have been Von's twisted mind games, but it was clear for anyone willing to see, Von wasn't moving with urgency. He was lagging on purpose. And even worse, leaked DMs between the two would prove this theory true. When K.I. asked Von if O-Block was plotting to kill her, he told her they were, but that he wouldn't be the one because he felt she was cool as hell. At this point, you gotta know that Von was for real. He had no intentions to kill her here, and that's because Odie Perry's death was a gang incident. It wasn't personal enough to awaken the demon in him. K.I. had to attack one of Von's homie before he would come for her, and sure enough, she didn't disappoint. In 2013, Von was thrown in the pen. While he was behind bars, his homie, J Money, was shot dead. K.I. was allegedly involved in the hit, and immediately Von got out, K.I. began trolling him, saying that she wished she could dig out J Money's grave so she could shoot him again. And this is when Von's tone changed. No more wifey, no more flirts. Now he was calling K.I. an op hoe that he wanted to hunt down and kill. Turns out K.I. must have been feeling the heat, the pressure, because she would send out this ominous tweet. Then she would follow it up with a tweet of her precise physical location. On the 11th of April, 2014, K.I., her brother, and one other individual was walking to a friend's house to have lunch, when around 3:30 p.m., a shooter pulled up on her and shot at her repeatedly in the chest, jaw, leg, and neck. It was Von. And many years later, papers would report just how gruesome the attack was. King Von had chased her down and stood over body pumping shot after shot into her body. Swagg Dinero for Lil Jojo.
Hey, reach it along. Yeah. Wrong with you, hey, I am Brick Squad. Yeah, Brick Squad, boy. Talking about, boy. We get on. We ain't for none. We ain't not heirs, man. Ain't no second. What is wrong with y'all, boy?
This clip was one moment out of many that led to the death of 2012 Chicago sensation, Lil Jojo. Swagg Dinero, the homie who would eventually slide for him when he got killed, was his brother by blood. Same father, different mothers. And the story of how Lil Jojo met his demise, and how his brother, Swagg Dinero, slid for him is really a story of a battle between gang factions, extreme disrespect, and the consequences that followed. Like most battles in the Chi, this was a war between the Black Disciples and the Gangster Disciples. Lil Jojo and Swagg Dinero were both Gangster Disciples, but before all that, both brothers were Inglewood natives in the south side of Chicago. Swagg was older than Lil Jojo by just 3 months, but before both of them could walk, they pops was locked up for attempted murder, spending the next decade behind bars. Being fatherless during all that time, Lil Jojo and Swagg Dinero grew to rely on each other, and with time, they found themselves joining the Gangster Disciples, the Brick Squad set. Now, I don't need to tell you this, but gangs like these always got some beef up their sleeves, and in most of these cases, it's territorial.
This is a big, heavy area right here of the BDs, Black Disciples. The Gangster Disciples start over here, and this is where the fight comes in.
In this scenario, their major beef was with the Lamron set of the BDs. But it gets a little complicated cause Brick Squad was allies with STL-EBT, and that meant, by extension, they was also beefing with O-Block and 600. Now, Lil Jojo might have looked like a cute, innocent kid, but the truth was, he was the farthest thing from sweet or innocent. He was a problem on the streets. And even though he'd grown up with O-Block members like Dirk and Lil Reese, even going to the same school with them, the very fact that they were in separate gangs prepped them for the smoke that was up ahead. So let's track this back. How did the beef really begin? I'm talking about the beef that led to Lil Jojo's death. Well, some say it all started on a basketball court. Dudes from Brick Squad got into it with homies from Lamron, and before you could say scram, they was taking shots at each other on the TL. Now, mind you, beefing on Twitter or on Facebook ain't nothing new, and it ain't always the genesis of bloodshed. The problem really started with the Chicago drill genre that had just taken off. Chief Keef had just set the scene on fire with I Don't Like, and Lil Durk was also very hot. A little too hot if you ask me, because on the 28th of March, 2012, Durk would drop a diss track, L's Anthem, where the rapper went in on Brick Squad. He rapped, "You don't with me, then them / my own I don't trust them / Brick Squad. I say them / Ruger World with them, so them / I'm in these streets, no ducking." Mind you, these lyrics were in the very first verse of the track, so you had to know the disrespect was real. And unsurprisingly, the track blew up. Everyone who wasn't GD was with it. And by the time it was on the radio, and by the time Lil Jojo heard it, he was pissed beyond measure. Funny thing is, Lil Jojo wasn't even a rapper at this point in time. But the diss got to him so hard, he discovered almost immediately he had a talent for rap. And it wasn't even just regular rap. He was gonna give a diss track on a level that would change the game forever. A diss track that eventually became the trigger for his early demise. On the 27th of April, 2012, the very next month after Durk's diss track, Lil Jojo dropped a remix of the Chief Keef song Everyday called BDK. Now, if you don't know, the 300 Gang is a bunch of BD sets that are cool with each other. I'm talking about Chief Keef, Lil Reese, Durk, and a whole lot of others. So it was crazy enough that Jojo was going after a number of BD sets with a diss track, but Jojo had mayhem on his mind, so he went further than that and named his song BDK, short for Black Disciple Killer. Remember, he was a gangster disciple. And this move meant that he was dissing the whole Black Disciple gang, not just one or some BD sets. The deed was done.
Speaking of his brother, man, you know, he made the whole BDK song. You know, what was your reaction when you first heard the song?
I was like, you're gonna have some problems coming his way.
Now that Gangster Disciples were claiming to be BDK, Shade-Town went to war, and Jojo did what anyone in his situation would do. He capitalized on his success and fueled the brewing war with another diss track. He released another name, Tied Up. In the vid to track, Lil Jojo got a Chief Keef lookalike tied to a chair. However, it was with his song, I Got That Sack, that Lil Jojo really crossed the line for all BDs in the area. In the outro, Lil Jojo came for the founder of Black Disciple, King Dave, calling him Queen Dave. This was the last straw. On the 4th of September 2012, witnesses saw Lil Jojo riding his bike in his block when he got shot dead, moments after dropping this tweet of his exact location. Now, his brother Swagg Dinero calls cap on these claims. He says that his brother wasn't riding a bike, but does it matter now? Now, while it's difficult to set the exact circumstances Lil Jojo was in when he got mudded, we can tell you for free that Swagg Dinero made sure to slide for him, because 2 months after his brother's demise, he dropped this tweet: "Even the ops know the MF who took my bro ain't walking this earth no more. F him too. Key Glock for Young Dolph."
Guess who's made it to the UK, yeah? It's Dolph. You like? And the game. Yeah.
The death of the pre-boss, Young Dolph, shook Memphis to its core. The self-acclaimed king of Memphis was dead. Who had the guts? Who did it? Well, the answer to those questions proved to be hella difficult to answer for everyone, including the police, and especially the de facto heir to the PRE throne, Young Dolph's cousin by marriage, Keith.
I was at home laying down, actually. Yeah.
And did somebody call you or?
Somebody called me in the house. Like, you know how you can hear when somebody call your name, like the tone of their voice, like you know something wrong, you just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
In the immediate aftermath of his cousin's death, Key Glock went AWOL. No one knew where he was, what he was doing, or how he was doing. But most could take a fair guess because they knew he was grieving heavy. And it's not surprising because if you aren't new to the Memphis scene, you know just how close both homies were. Young Dolph was like his older brother, practically his mentor. Young Dolph was crazy for independence. Key Glock stayed independent. Young Dolph made sure no one in his circle stayed hungry. Key Glock kept his crew busy and fed. But this turned out to be a problem. Why? Well, because one of the early suspects in the investigations that followed Dolph's demise picked Straight Drop, real name Justin Johnson, as a prime suspect. Now, this reveal was a bittersweet reveal for Key Glock, and the reason it was because Straight Drop was a homie of his. In fact, the brand new suspect had been in a couple of Key Glock's music videos. He's the one in the orange jacket holding a gun, and he's the one behind Young Dolph and YFN Lucci here. For Glock, it was one hell of a betrayal if it was true. And this is probably the reason why, when Key Glock would eventually break his silence, it was with a very angry post on his IG story where he said, "Stop asking me if I'm okay, knowing damn well I ain't." But it goes a lot deeper than what was showing. Because while on the surface, peeps were following the capture of Justin Johnson as justice for Young Dolph's death, everyone on the street knew that it was more than that. There were other players, and the plot that took out Young Dolph was a major conspiracy between gangs that Dolph had with in the past. Back in February 2022, about 3 months after Dolph's demise, CEO TZ, this guy Josh Taylor, was named as a person of interest in Dolph's murder case. And for the uninitiated, CEO TZ was the head of the Trella Mafia gang, a gang that was supposedly allied to Dolph. So what the hell happened? Well, again, it goes deeper. And to get the answer, we gotta go back to the crime scene. Justin Johnson wasn't a lone shooter. There was another shooter named Cornelius Smith and an alleged mastermind named Hernandez Govan.
It was the public's first look at 43-year-old Hernandez Govan since his indictment. The man prosecutors say recruited co-defendants 24-year-old Justin Johnson and 32-year-old Cornelius Smith to kill Adolph Thornton, aka Young Dolph.
But what you probably didn't know is that Justin Johnson was also a member of the Trella Mafia gang. The same gang that Josh Taylor, the CEO TZ guy I showed you a minute ago, was a part of. But Justin Johnson, Smith, and Govan had already been arrested. And since they were under custody, there was no way anyone could touch them except the law. So what was left was for the other traitor on the outside to be taken out. And sure as hell he was.
Yeah, we start with that breaking news tonight. We've been told by Memphis police that a high-profile gang member was killed in a shooting in Orange Mound this afternoon. This is according to family members who tell us Joshua Taylor was named a person of interest in the Young Dolph murder case back in February of 2022.
Now, don't quote me anywhere because there's no proof to show that CEO TZ was taken out by Key Glock, but best believe that the streets believe he did. And the reason they feel he did, because he's never been the type to talk about his personal business to the public or in interviews. And he'd never been the type to show off or snitch on himself in his lyrics, like say, King Von did all his career before his own demise. Key Glock's always kept his movement under lock and key. He knows who his homies are and who his ops are.
You either with us or against us. Ain't no monkey in the middle.
So did Key Glock slide Young Dolph? Well, I'm inclined to believe he did. The death of someone like CEO TZ, a gang leader responsible for the death of King Dolph, cannot be an error. Suge Knight for Tupac.
As we were driving, in my car, I heard shots ring out. And at first, I just thought of somebody shooting in the air. And just human reaction, I immediately ducked down. Everybody in my car ducked down. And then I heard somebody yell, you know, they shot at Biggie's car.
90s hip-hop saw a bitter rivalry between two factions in the U.S. On the West Coast, we had LA-based Death Row Records boss Suge Knight. And on the East Coast, there was the New York-based Bad Boy Records chief, Sean Puffy Combs. These were the heavyweights, but the rappers on the battlefront were really between their artistes. Tupac Shakur versus Biggie. Eventually, the war turned bloody. And eventually all of that blood splattered on Suge and Diddy's doorsteps when both their artists got killed in quick succession. Tupac was the first to go.
Every brother in here, please take your hat off. At 7:03 p.m. New York time, 4:03 p.m. Las Vegas time, Tupac Shakur passed away, y'all.
Suge was in the car at the time, and he also got hit. Now, if you know anything about the Sugar Bear, you know that he's almost always the one to use extreme violence first. So it must have really hurt him to be on the receiving end. And even worse, they had taken out his golden goose, Tupac. 6 months later, Biggie was shot to death as he sat in a vehicle at a red light after leaving the Soul Train Music Awards in Los Angeles. Suge's very own
It's been 25 years since the murder of Notorious B.I.G. and a drive-by shooting on an L.A. street rocked the music industry to its core. A quarter of a century later, the slaying remains officially unsolved, a case steeped in conspiracy theories and alleged cover-up.
To this day, we still don't know who pulled off the hit, or do we? Truth is, if you've been paying attention over the years, then you've probably guessed it is Suge Knight. But hey, you ask, where's the proof? Where are the receipts? Well, you can find them with this man, Phil Carson, the former federal investigator that was on Biggie's case. Phil Carson says Suge Knight hired a hitman named Amir Muhammad to carry out the killings, and that he got help from the dirty cops in the LAPD to cover up the murder. Before Phil Carson retired from the FBI, he worked the Biggie Smalls case for 2 years, and these were his exact words when he was interviewed by the New York Post. All the evidence points to Amir Muhammad. He's the one who pulled the trigger. There were plenty of others who helped orchestrate it and allowed him to pull the trigger. The FBI agent says he has eyewitness testimony and some circumstantial evidence that link Amir to the hit. One of the biggest red flags being the fact that Amir was close friends with David Mack, this guy. And who is David Mack, you ask? Well, he just happens to be one of the most corrupt police officers in the history of the LAPD. While he was still an officer, he was on Suge Knight's payroll and served time in prison for a robbery at a Bank of America branch in Los Angeles in August 1997, 5 months after Biggie's murder. That robbery, according to the FBI agent, was the amount that served as the blood money for the hit on Biggie. Why? Well, because the sum was never recovered. Wait, how much are we talking about? Just $722,000 is the answer you're looking for. If you still don't see how this makes sense or how the threads connect, then you probably haven't heard of the Rampart scandal, the biggest police corruption case in U.S. history.
In one court hearing after another, prosecutors have made a series of stunning admissions about corruption in the Los Angeles Police Department.
We have reason to believe that Officer Nino Durden testified falsely about the alleged narcotics transactions and that he witnessed and may have planted rock cocaine on this defendant.
Amir's friend David Mack and another officer named Rafael Perez were at the center of widespread corruption found among LAPD officers, where some of them had been serving as security guards for Suge Knight and his death row records. And you wonder why Suge was untouchable in the 90s. Today, both David Mack and his friend Amir Muhammad are free men. Until today, both men deny being a part of the killing. But who's gonna believe them? Do you believe them? Now let's circle back to the death row boss, because he's kept his lips sealed ever since the demise of Biggie. And the retired FBI agent hasn't stopped pointing fingers at him. He told the New York Post that Suge Knight financed the murder. Suge was ticked off that his cash cow, Tupac, was murdered. Suge had an accountant that was part of Death Row Records who helped do the financial side of things to pay for the murders. It's crazy, especially when you consider that Notorious Big had nothing to do with Tupac's slaying. And if you're trying to stick it on Diddy, well, all I can say to you is good luck, because you're gonna need it. But if you're asking me, I would say I wouldn't be surprised if we eventually find out for certain that Suge did slide for Tupac by financing Biggie's demise. Death and bloodshed has never been out of bounds for the death row boss. It's in the name. And if you still need more convincing, then I'll leave you with this sinister Suge clip from an interview with Jimmy Kimmel in the 90s.
So if you shoot somebody, you go to jail forever. So the kids, you don't want to go to jail forever, right? So they got this new thing out there. People sell them all the time. They got this stuff they get blood from somebody with AIDS, and then they shoot you with it.
Oh,
so
that seems bad.
That's a slow death.
Yeah.
An easy thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, no.
If you enjoyed this expose, click on a video on your screen to watch even more interesting mini documentaries like this one, and I'll see you there.